The winds sweeping across the Norfolk coast in late December are unforgiving, cutting through the thickest tweed and chilling the bones of anyone brave enough to stand outside. Yet every winter, a fleet of black Range Rovers navigates the winding country roads leading to a specific estate, carrying the most famous family in the world toward their annual pilgrimage. To the outside observer, Christmas at Sandringham House looks like a fairy tale idyll, a retreat into the quiet English countryside where a monarch and his kin can finally relax away from the prying lenses of the paparazzi. But those who have stepped inside the red brick mansion know a different truth. This is no holiday. It is a military operation disguised as a family gathering, governed by a rulebook so archaic and precise that a single misstep can result in freezing social exile. Sandringham is not a palace in the traditional sense. It is a private home purchased by Queen Victoria for her eldest son, the future Edward VII, to escape the suffocating court life of Windsor. However, over the last century and a half, it has developed a gravitational pull of its own, accumulating layers of etiquette that have hardened into iron law. For a newcomer marrying into the House of Windsor, or a guest invited for the first time, the atmosphere is less about relaxation and more about survival. The clocks are set differently here. The wardrobe requirements are exhausting, and the expectations for behaviour are drawn from a time when the British Empire covered a quarter of the globe. What makes these rules so fascinating is not just their strictness, but their strangeness. Many of them defy modern logic, rooted instead in the personal quirks of long-dead kings, or the specific logistical nightmares of cramming a massive dynasty into a house that is, by royal standards, surprisingly small. From the moment the guests arrive, they surrender their autonomy to a schedule that dictates when they eat, what they wear, when they can sleep, and even how much they are allowed to weigh. There is no room for spontaneity when tradition is the host. To understand the royal family is to understand Sandringham in winter. It is here, behind the heavy curtains and amidst the vast collection of hunting trophies, that the monarchy is most distilled. The public face of waving from balconies is replaced by the private face of rigid adherence to protocol. We are pulling back the curtain on the specific, verified, and often bizarre regulations that govern the festive season at the King's Norfolk estate. These are the hurdles every royal, from the highest ranking to the newest recruit, must clear to survive the holidays. Number 10. The Order of Arrival. The orchestration of the Christmas period begins long before the first bottle of champagne is uncorked. It starts with the arrival, a logistical ballet that would impress any air traffic controller. Unlike a normal family gathering where guests might drift in throughout the afternoon, arrival at Sandringham is strictly regimented by rank. The schedule is designed to prevent congestion in the driveway and to ensure that the hierarchy of the monarchy is physically enacted before anyone even steps through the door. Junior members of the family, usually the cousins and minor royals, are given the earliest time slots, often arriving in the late morning or early afternoon. As the day progresses, the seniority of the arrivals increases. The Prince and Princess of Wales and their children are typically among the last to pull up to the gravel sweep, signalling that the inner circle is complete. This staggered entry serves a practical purpose, allowing the staff to settle each group into their assigned quarters, which can be notoriously cramped, before the next wave descends. But it also serves a psychological one. It reminds everyone of their place in the line of succession. You do not simply show up when traffic allows, you show up when your station dictates. The final arrival is always the monarch. In the past, Queen Elizabeth II would often take the public train to King's Lynn days earlier to oversee preparations, but for the main event of the family gathering, the monarch is the anchor. Once the king and queen are in residence, the house is effectively sealed. To arrive late is unthinkable. There are stories of frantic drives and panicked calls from royals stuck in traffic, knowing that delaying the monarch's schedule is a cardinal sin in Norfolk. The structure of the dynasty is rigid, and the driveway at Sandringham is the first place that reality bites. Number 9. The weighing in ceremony. Perhaps the most bizarre and anxiety-inducing tradition at Sandringham is the ritual of the antique scales. This rule dates back to the early 1900s and the reign of King Edward VII. Edward was a man of immense appetites, known as tum tum to his friends, and he believed that a successful weekend of hosting meant his guests had eaten until they were physically heavier. To prove his hospitality, he mandated that everyone, family and guests alike, be weighed on a set of jockey scales upon arrival. This might sound like an urban legend, but it is a documented practice that has survived into the modern era. Guests are asked to step onto the antique device when they enter the house, and the figure is recorded. The expectation, historically, is that when they are weighed again upon departure, they should have gained weight. It was originally a sign that the king had fed them well, a testament to the abundance of the royal table. In the Edwardian era, this was a charming eccentricity. In the body-conscious 21st century, it is a source of dread. For a new royal bride or a nervous guest, the prospect of a public weigh-in is horrifying. Yet because it is tradition, it is difficult to refuse without seeming like a poor sport. The scales themselves are a relic of a bygone age, likely inaccurate by modern standards, but the symbolism is what matters. It reinforces the idea that at Sandringham you are subject to the whims of history. You are participating in a century-old game where your physical state is part of the royal record. It is a stark reminder that personal privacy is the first thing checked at the door. Number 8. The German gift exchange. If you were to visit Sandringham on Christmas Day, expecting to see the family tearing open presents around the tree, you would be waiting a long time. The royal family does not open gifts on December 25th. Instead, they adhere to the German tradition of Heiligabend, or Holy Evening, opening their presents at tea time on Christmas Eve. This is a direct holdover from their ancestry, specifically the customs brought over by Queen Victoria's husband, Prince Albert. At 6 p.m. sharp, after afternoon tea, the family gathers in the red drawing room where tables have been laid out, one for each family member, laden with their gifts. But the rule here is not just about timing, it is about content. In a family that possesses crown jewels, palaces, and priceless art, giving a luxury gift is considered incredibly gauche. The rule at Sandringham is simple. The cheaper and cheekier, the better. The goal is to make the monarch laugh. There is a legendary story of Prince Harry giving the late Queen a shower cap with a profane slogan, or Princess Anne giving King Charles a leather toilet seat cover. These gag gifts are a way to puncture the pomposity of their daily lives. For an outsider, this can be a minefield. Princess Diana famously struggled with this during her first Christmas, gifting beautiful cashmere sweaters and expensive items, only to be met with confusion and embarrassment as everyone else exchanged whoopee cushions and grow-your-own-girlfriend kits. The rule tests a newcomer's ability to understand the peculiar, self-deprecating humour of the aristocracy. It is a test of character disguised as a joke. If you buy the king a Rolex, you have failed. If you buy him a singing fish, you belong. Number 7. The multiple wardrobe changes. Packing for Sandringham is not like packing for a vacation. It is like packing for a theatrical production where you play 5 different characters a day. The dress code rules are relentless and non-negotiable. There is no lounging in pajamas until noon. The day begins with a specific outfit for breakfast and the morning church service, usually a smart day dress and coat for women and a suit for men. But that is just the beginning. After church, lunch requires a different ensemble. If the afternoon involves a shooting party or a long walk, which it almost always does, guests must change into heavy tweeds, waterproofs, and sturdy boots. This is the country set look, which is distinct from the town look. Wearing city clothes in the muddy fields of Norfolk is a rookie mistake that signals you don't understand the lifestyle. Then comes afternoon tea, which might require a change into something slightly more relaxed, but still formal enough for the drawing room. The grand finale is dinner. Every single night at Sandringham, regardless of how tired the family is, dinner is a black tie affair. The men wear tuxedos or velvet smoking jackets. The women wear full-length evening gowns and often their finest jewellery. This happens even if it is just the immediate family eating. The contrast between the muddy boots of the afternoon and the diamonds of the evening is the defining aesthetic of the royal Christmas. It requires a level of stamina and organisation that leaves many guests exhausted by the second day. Number 6. The Church Walk Protocol. On Christmas morning, the private nature of the holiday briefly intersects with the public sphere during the walk to St. Mary Magdalene Church. This is the only time the public gets a good look at the family, and the rules governing this short journey are precise. The walk is a performance. The monarch usually travels by car, a privilege of rank and age, while the rest of the family makes the short trek from the house on foot. This procession is not a casual stroll, it is a hierarchy in motion. The order of the walk is scrutinised by the press and the public. Senior royals walk in front, with the younger generation following. For the spouses of royals, particularly in the early years, navigating this walk is terrifying. You must look happy, engage with the crowds, accept flowers, and maintain a perfect pace, all while not overshadowing the king or queen. There are no rehearsals. You are thrown into the media glare on one of the biggest news days of the year. Inside the church, the rules continue. The seating plan is strictly observed, with the monarch in the front pew. The service is traditional, usually featuring carols and readings that have not changed in decades. For the family, this is work. They are on display. Any slip in demeanour, a yawn, or a whispered joke is captured by long-lens cameras. The rule is absolute composure until they are back behind the gates of the estate, where the cameras cannot follow. Number 5. The Shooting Etiquette. Boxing Day at Sandringham is synonymous with the shoot. For the men of the family, and increasingly the women who enjoy the sport, this is the centrepiece of the winter break. The estate is a working farm and a prime location for game birds, particularly pheasants. The rules of the shoot are ancient and pertain to safety, hierarchy, and sportsmanship. It is overseen by the gamekeepers, whose word on the field is law, even to the king. There is a strict code regarding who shoots and who picks up. In recent years, there has been scrutiny over the participation of younger royals, but the tradition persists as a rite of passage. The dress code here is functional but specific. Breeches, high socks, flat caps. It is a uniform of the landed gentry. But beyond the clothes, there is the rule of conduct. One does not complain about the cold, the mud, or the long hours standing in a damp field. Stoicism is the currency of the day. For those who do not shoot, usually the Queen and some of the senior ladies, the rule is to join the party for a picnic lunch in a shooting lodge. This is not a sandwich on a bench. It is a full catered meal, often with hot soups and sausages, served in the middle of the woods. The convergence of the shooters and the non-shooters is a critical social moment. It is a test of one's ability to handle the blood and grit of country life. If you are squeamish, Sandringham is a difficult place to hide. Number 4. No garlic, no shellfish, no starches. The menus at Sandringham are drafted weeks in advance and are written in French, a tradition that has held firm since the 19th. 19th century. But the contents of those menus are governed by the specific dietary rules of the monarch. Under King Charles, these rules have shifted slightly, but certain prohibitions remain legendary. For decades, under Queen Elizabeth II, garlic was strictly banned. It was considered antisocial for a family that has to speak to people in close quarters. That rule largely persists to ensure no one has offensive breath during the intense socializing of the holiday. Shellfish is another risky item often avoided to prevent the catastrophe of food poisoning, which could derail the tightly packed schedule. But perhaps the most surprising rule for many years was the restriction on starches, like potatoes and pasta during dinner, particularly when the late Queen was dining alone or with close family, as she preferred a lighter diet. However, Christmas allows for some indulgence, and the traditional turkey dinner is exempt from the carb ban. The dining speed is also a rule unto itself. The protocol dictates that when the monarch stops eating, everyone stops eating. If you are a slow eater, or if you spend too much time talking and not enough time chewing, you might find your plate whisked away by a footman before you are finished. The rhythm of the meal is set by the head of the table. It is a subtle display of power. The king controls the pace of nourishment for the entire room. Number 3. The separation of men and women. This is a rule that feels like it belongs in a period drama, yet it lingers in the habits of the royal household. After the formal black-tie dinner, there is often a moment where the sexes separate. Traditionally, the ladies would withdraw to the drawing room for coffee and liqueurs, while the men would remain at the dining table for port and conversation. This retiring allowed for different types of conversation: politics and business for the men, domestic and social matters for the women. While this has softened significantly in the modern era, especially with the influence of younger royals who find such customs archaic, the ghost of the tradition remains. There is still a rhythm to the evening that often sees the groups naturally splintering. The coffee is always served in the drawing room, and the transition from the dining table to the soft seating areas is a formal procession. You do not simply wander off to check your phone or go to bed. This separation emphasizes the structured nature of their social interaction. Even relaxation is choreographed. The conversation in the drawing room is expected to be light, pleasant, and devoid of controversy. The rule is to keep the atmosphere buoyant. Arguments, heavy emotional discussions, or airing of grievances are strictly forbidden in the drawing room. The stiff upper lip is not just a metaphor here, it is a requirement for digestion. Number 2. The Christmas tree stays until February. Most families take their Christmas decorations down in early January, typically by 12th night, to avoid bad luck. At Sandringham, the Christmas tree and the decorations remain up until February 6th. This is a rule born of grief and remembrance. February 6th is the anniversary of the death of King George VI, Queen Elizabeth II's father, who died in his sleep at Sandringham in 1952. He loved the house, and his death there cemented the estate's emotional significance for the family. For 70 years, the Queen insisted that the festive decorations remain in place until that anniversary had passed, as a way of honouring his memory and keeping the spirit of the season alive during the dark weeks of January. It is expected that King Charles will continue this tradition, as he holds a deep reverence for his grandfather and the history of the estate. The rule turns the house into a time capsule. While the rest of the world has moved on to the new year, Sandringham remains suspended in Christmas. This creates a strange atmosphere for the staff and the few family members who might stay on. The tinsel and lights become less about celebration and more about a vigil. It is a poignant reminder that for the royal family, the past is never really past. They live among the ghosts of their ancestors, and their calendar is dictated as much by anniversaries of death as it is by the living. Number 1. No sleep before the king. The ultimate test of endurance at Sandringham is the bedtime rule. It is a strict breach of protocol for any guest to go to bed before the monarch. The king determines when the evening ends. If he wishes to stay up until 2 a.m. discussing regenerative farming, listening to opera, or working on jigsaw puzzles, the guests must stay up with him. To excuse oneself early is seen as a sign of boredom or disrespect. Under Queen Elizabeth II, this was famously challenging. She was a night owl who enjoyed late-night conversation, often leaving younger family members struggling to keep their eyes open. There are accounts of Princess Diana finding these late nights excruciatingly long, desperate to escape to her room, but bound by the protocol of the royal presence. The atmosphere in the drawing room can become a battle of attrition, with guests waiting for the subtle signal, usually the monarch rising from their chair, that releases them from duty. This rule encapsulates the reality of life at Sandringham. You are not on your own time, you are on the king's time. Your sleep, your hunger, and your comfort are secondary to the needs of the crown. It turns the simple act of going to bed into a diplomatic maneuver. It is the final hurdle of the day, a reminder that even in their pajamas, the hierarchy holds firm. Only when the king retires does the house finally breathe. Sandringham is often described as a magical winter escape, and visually it is. But beneath the tinsel and the black-tie dinners lies a framework of rules that would baffle the average person. These protocols, the weighing scales, the assigned arrival times, the mandatory wakefulness, are the glue that holds the firm together. They transform a family gathering into an institution. Do you think these traditions are a necessary part of maintaining the mystique of the monarchy, or are they just an exhausting relic that needs to be abandoned? Is it possible to have a real family connection when you have to bow before you go to bed? These rules might seem trivial, but they are the walls that separate the royals from the rest of us. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden world of royal protocol, hitting the like button helps us uncover more stories like this. And for more investigations into the private lives of the elite, make sure you're subscribed. We have a video coming up on the secret security protocols of the Vatican that you won't want to miss. I'll see you in the next one.